Only the highest vibrations of love and light can be in this space, and all objects in the space, for the highest good for this reading today. All other energies must leave now. I call in the highest level of the divine that knows that love is the power and the truth from which we read, the highest level guides and angels to help us with this reading. Archangel Michael, hold this space for us. And so it is. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth, as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. Okay, the records are now open. What I'm getting, definitely, I'm getting this very strongly, and I mean, it's interesting. Your origins was actually Lyra, okay? And Lyra is a constellation that's in, it's near actually kind of what they call Galactic Center. There's Galactic Center, and Galactic Center is actually located between Scorpio and Sagittarius. And that's where they believe that Source lives, at least, you know, as the Source as we know it. Lyra was actually what is called the home of human consciousness. I'm seeing that you have very strong Lyran humanoid genetics, you know, so you were, when you first incarnated in Lyra, you were one of the humanoid beings, okay? So what I'm seeing, and this is kind of like a little bit of back history on Lyra. I'll just kind of give you the backstory. It's actually quite sad. What happened with Lyra? Lyra, when Source first decided to split itself off, there was a big experiment that Source decided to do. Because, you know, Source was, I guess, perfect in its infinity, but I think it got bored and just wanted to split itself into different group consciousness. So there was a group consciousness that split off from Source that was called the Elohim. These are also known as the co-creators. So these beings, and you probably heard of the Elohim. These co-creators were looking to become creators like Source. So they were looking for an area to co-create in, and they picked Lyra because even though it was a small constellation, it had the conditions that were most inhabitable for life. Okay, so these beautiful beings, and they were not physical beings. They were in kind of light body form. I mean, they were etheric. And some people put kind of like a negative connotation to the Elohim, but they actually weren't negative at all. They just were, and you know, just because they decided to split off from Source, it wasn't really a negative thing. It was just a big experiment. So unfortunately, it started a whole human drama. Okay, so things get a little interesting. At first, they were co-creating planets and you know, plant life on these planets and oceans and animals, and then they decided to create more intelligent beings. And the very first group of beings they created were what they call the Lyran lion or Lyran feline beings. So they were kind of humanoid in their body, but they had kind of feline features. So you might feel that when you see cats or big cats especially, you feel kind of a kinship with them because absolutely. Because you know they were part of your galactic family. Okay, so so they created these big cats and cat-like beings, and they were extremely high dimensional. I mean, these were beings that were like 15 feet tall. They they had many psychic gifts. I mean, they could do anything. They were very strong. They also had they were very benevolent beings. Okay, so these were they were cat beings that just I think exhibited probably kind of the best qualities of the felines, which was loyalty, a high integrity, that sort of thing. So after that, these cat-like beings also wanted to create, so they took their own genetics and mixed it with I think simian genetics, and they created the first Lyran humanoids. The Lyran humanoids were not just regular humans, though. They also were very high vibrational. Okay, so these were beings that had at least 12-strand DNA, if not more, and they had quite a few abilities, and they were magnificent. A lot of people think that the Greek gods were actually Lyrans that visited Earth a long time ago. So they were, magnificent looking people. This race was very peaceful. They also created, I think, a different human race. Lyra had 13 stars. One of the main star was Vega, and that was the home of the Vega humanoid beings who were darker skinned. They had really deep blue, dark skin. So you were not part of the Vega. You were in the Lyran group. The Vegas had more of a mother goddess consciousness. Lyrans had more father god consciousness. Okay, so it's a little bit different perspectives. So the Lyrans were very well developed humans. They loved physical activity. They were predominantly agricultural. Okay. They were predominantly because they lived in peaceful planets, and they were just coexisting with the other Lyran races, and it was a very peaceful place. It was beautiful. It was like paradise. I mean, it was even better than the Garden of Eden. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes. A lot of Lyrans are very connected to plants. They feel very, very connected to plants and animals to a certain extent, but more like plants, especially flowers. They love flowers.
Absolutely.
So I'm not surprised to hear that you love your garden.
Immensely.
Yeah. So, in your first life on Lyra, it was still quite peaceful there, and what this tells me is you're actually a very ancient soul. I mean, you've been around since the beginning of human history. I mean, it's just, and this was millions of years ago. I mean, this is like, and a lot of our souls are infinite. It's just, there is no beginning, no end. A lot of people think, oh, when you die, your soul, just dies, or if they do believe in reincarnation, they believe you get sucked into this reincarnation cycle.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's actually not true of star seeds. We tend to be more. We tend to have a little. I think some Earth souls maybe choose to get into the reincarnation cycle. Not so much with star seeds. We always have free will choice. So a lot of times we end up choosing our path. So moving along with your story, I'm seeing in your first life. I think you, like a lot of Lyrans, you had a farm and you were growing plants, and a lot of Lyrans, they did not eat animals. They were vegetarian or vegan.
And that's what I am now.
Oh, you are? Okay. So you're eating a diet that is perfect for your genetics, okay? Because you've been.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Sorry to cut it like that.
Oh no, that's great. I like to hear confirmation, because sometimes I'm thinking, am I going in the right direction here? And it's like, okay, yes, I am. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So they were expert farmers, and they learned to grow plants, and like I said, it was peaceful society. They knew no conflict. These were people that were kind of innocent and maybe a little naive, because they were brand new soul beings, and they were just experiencing life, a lot of them for the first time. And so they had no idea what was in store for them, and it's a very sad story. But they had no conflict, so they had no need to have an army or learn how to fight, because they did have technology. I mean, they were actually very technologically advanced for being such a simple people. They did have enough technological skills to build starships and other tools that help them have much more high level lives. So so they weren't simpletons, or just people that were primitive. I'm saying these were very advanced people, but they didn't fight because they never needed to. I mean, they didn't learn any kind of martial skills. So what happened with the Lyrans is their planets were so beautiful and they were so rich with resources that other star systems took notice, and particularly a star system that was right next door to Lyra called Draco. And you probably heard of Draco.
Oh, Draco, yes.
Yeah. Draco was actually the beings on Draco came actually from a different universe. Nobody knows where they originated from. I even tried to check the records, and I don't find much. It's just kind of like they got deposited there actually, and I think somebody kicked them out of some other universe and decided to place them on Draco. So they're a different consciousness than the beings that were in Lyra. These were what we know as the reptilians today. Okay, so
yeah.
So these reptilian beings, unlike the Lyrans, were all about service to self. They were all about, okay, we are the superior race. We want to conquer as many or take over as many star systems as possible. So that was their focus. And they were ruthless. They were ugly. But they reached out to Lyra initially in the pretense of wanting to form a treaty, because they were their next door neighbors, and relatively speaking, But and the Lyrans, bought it hooks, line, and sinker. They had no reason to, I think, doubt the intentions of the Draconians. They just thought, oh, okay, we met some new people, and they look quite a bit different from us, but let's coexist together, because that's what they did with other races in Lyra. They had also bird people in Lyra. They had elementals. They had a variety of different races. So. So what happened with the Draconians is that their intentions was to take Lyra over, okay? So they actually ambushed Lyra, the planets on Lyra. They were attacked, okay? And it was brutal. I've seen it in the records. It was horrible. The Lyrans had no way to defend themselves. They say 50 million Lyrans lost their lives. This was throughout several different planets. 3 of the planets were completely annihilated. I mean, they were just blown up. The Lyrans that did manage to escape barely escaped with their lives. And what they did was they piled up in their motherships and they took off to different star systems. So that's how the human race dispersed into all these different star systems that we know today: Pleiades, Sirius, Orion, Andromeda. So what I'm seeing with you, and you actually, your group actually went to Andromeda. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so I see kind of an kind of Lyran Andromedan. Okay, so that's what I would say your energy is. Very there's, and we'll get into Andromeda too. But initially, because the Lyrans had never been outside their home system, they kind of fumbled around. They wandered for years trying to hide out from the Draconians. And so your group ended up in Cassiopeia, okay, for a while. And Cassiopeia is actually located fairly close to the Andromeda galaxy. Not the galaxy, the constellation, sorry. So during this time, there was a group of beings in Cassiopeia, very high dimensional beings that were assisting the Lyran refugees. And they allowed you to hide out there for a while, but then after they were able to, I think, help heal, there was a lot of people that had a lot of wounds, and I mean, it was kind of, you guys barely escaped. I mean, it was a ragtag, little group of ships that ended up in Cassiopeia. So the Cassiopeian beings, they were very high dimensional beings. They weren't really in the same kind of physicality as the Lyrans, but they managed to help the Lyran refugees, and they encouraged them to maybe make Andromeda constellation their new home. Okay, the Andromeda constellation is actually located about 300 light years away from our solar system, so it's much further away. So they felt it would be a safe place for these Lyran people to go. So your group was actually the very, very first humans that arrived in Andromeda. Andromeda already had a few different species of beings that lived there, but your group established its first its first colony in Andromeda, and I think they called their race the Zenitae. That was their own term. And you might want to look up some of the work of Alex Collier. I don't know if you heard of him. He was somebody. Yeah, his last name is spelled Collier. And his first name is Alex, and he has quite a few interviews on YouTube. And yeah, I think you'll find his accounts very interesting. He was a ET contactee that channeled quite a bit of information from the Andromedans. Okay, so yeah, yeah. So so what I'm seeing there is, you were one of the people that managed to escape, and you were fortunate because quite a few Lyrans didn't. So there you made a new home for yourself. Now, because Andromeda was so isolated, the Lyran people that were there ended up, I think, developing at such a high level spiritually. It was like they evolved, that they almost didn't look like Lyrans anymore. Okay, the planets around the Andromeda galaxy, or I keep saying galaxy, it's actually the constellation. The constellation had high copper levels. Okay, so the beings there ended up developing a blue skin tone because even though they're descendants of the white Lyrans, and they became very, very elongated and tall. I think maybe because of the lack of gravity. So, yeah. So this is, so the humanoid race, they looked very human, but they had a slightly different physicality.
Sure.
Yeah. Their brains were a little bit bigger. So you see a lot of them that have, maybe a bigger head type. They got so spiritually evolved that a lot of them were transitioning into from fifth, fourth or fifth to seventh dimension, and ninth dimension, and they became almost angelic. They were just very, very evolved, and they say some of the Andromedan, very high level, like the ninth dimensional Andromedans, had wings. They had. So a lot of people may think, oh, angels are just here on Earth. No, they had angels in other star systems too. So. I'm seeing with you, first few lives, you mainly was helping Andromeda build a new culture or a new civilization. I'm seeing you doing a lot of building, and I don't know if this is physical or maybe in an esoteric sense, but they're saying that. When you got to Andromeda, the climate there was so, the environment there was so different that you had to learn new forms of farming, because that was what you did. You were, a farmer from Lyra. And so you had to work with the new environment you were in, and it was very, very different. You had to learn to, I think, grow plants in high copper, soil with high copper content, so.
Sure.
In consequent lives, you did not remain a farmer. Okay, you worked your way into. I think you worked in technology for a while, and then just building shielding systems around the planets, and then you were working on developing some of the new starships. The Andromedan starships are like the Cadillacs of starships. I mean, they're very sleek and they're very simple in their appearance. I might send you like a picture of what I think they look like. And
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy that. But
thank you very much.
Yeah, they have kind of an elliptical shape about them, and they look very sleek. I call them kind of like the Ferraris of starships. They're just very sleek looking, and they're quite beautiful, and they're quite advanced. The Andromedans ended up becoming very technologically advanced. I think partially as part of survival, but also because they just enjoyed working in science and working with technology. That was
how interesting.
Yeah. Do you work with any technology today, or?
Not really.
Okay.
I seem to pick things up quite easily
Mm-hmm.
with technology. I do lots of things, building and stuff like that. Find quite sort of easy. I love my gardens and my plants.
Yeah.
It kind of ties in.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's neat. I'm the same way. I wouldn't consider myself a techno whiz, but I'm not Andromedan. I'm Arcturian. But the Arcturians were also very highly advanced technologically, and so I can go on a computer and figure things out. I can build a website. I can just figure things out. That's just how I am.
Sure. Exactly.
So it sounds like you have quite a few of the same abilities. So
yes.
Yeah. So, and that's because we've worked with technology so much, but we worked with really high level technology. So here on Earth, it's kind of like, okay, this is really primitive, this is kind of some primitive stuff we're working with here, but okay, I guess, we can work with this, but we're just happy to have something because, for a long time on Earth, they didn't have anything, it was like, the Dark Ages. Yeah. So, so you had, I would say most of your off-world lives was in Andromeda, and you became, as I think in each consequent lifetime that you had, you developed more and more spiritually. And so you ended up stepping into higher level, I think, positions. I'm seeing that in at least one lifetime, you served on the Andromedan Council. Okay, so it was like their government. Okay, It was very very democratic. They did not they didn't have all the deception and BS that we have in our governments here on Earth. People would just serve for a short term, and it was just, everyday members, everyday citizens, so it was kind of like a call to service, kind of like being called to be on the jury or something like that. So, so it was a call to service. And I think 1 or 2 lifetimes you were called to be on the council. And that was where you got your first exposure to a group called the Galactic Federation. Okay. Now, the Galactic Federation was a alliance between all the different star systems that were all benevolent. So that would include your Andromedans, your Pleiadians, your Arcturians, Sirians, everybody. So all the ones that were, the good guys. So, and the reason why they formed the Galactic Federation was predominantly to prevent another Lyra catastrophe from happening again. Okay, so their role was to help guide and protect. Okay, so so we have quite a few Galactic Federation members, even here in our solar system, here in this and on Earth, around Earth. A lot of their ships are actually watching over Earth to make sure we don't get invaded by, nefarious beings. So.
Plenty of ships.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. I have too, actually. So that tells me that you're already very much in tune with the higher dimensions. You say you do healing. What kind of healing work do you do?
It's not like Reiki. It's just like hands-on healing. When you sit with a patient and you. And I'm also working with a guy at the moment, wonderful fella called Ed. He's got a guide who's doing energy healing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. A lot of Andromedan souls are experts at energy healing. I mean, they take to it like a duck to water. I mean, they just.
Sure.
And I'm not surprised to hear you work with energy because. And unlike the Arcturians, we love to use tools and, we do more psycho-spiritual healing. The Andromedans do physical healing, but they do it only with energy. So they don't use any kind of tools. They just use the power of their mental capacity and their
exactly.
So that's the beauty of the Andromedan style healing is that it's very high level. You're probably going to outgrow Reiki. I'm seeing you're gonna probably go beyond Reiki and develop your own energy healing style. Because that's the Andromedan way. Reiki was actually, I think, a construct that was first developed in Sirius, and it's more of a Syrian modality. Or Syrian-based modality. It was actually developed, I think, in Japan, but they took concepts from, Syrian healing modalities, and some Orion. So for you, Reiki is a good start, but you're going to move beyond that. Okay, so you're just, you're going to move beyond it.
Fabulous.
So you're going to be shifting actually quite quickly into doing more spiritual level work. And actually what I actually see you doing, and this is, I think, going to be kind of a side thing. You love gardening and you have an inherent understanding of plants. Okay. So I see you making tinctures and potions from flower essences. Okay. Kind of like Bach remedies, but you're going to do it your own Lyran-Draconian style, okay? So, so it's going to be like, your own little flavor to it. But I see you developing tinctures that are going to help assist your patients with the energy healing. It's going to help ground the energy healing that much more. So you'll be selling these little tinctures along with, and I think Dawn does something like that, doesn't she? Or
I believe so.
Yeah, so and I almost see you two maybe even working together on something like this. So
wow.
So Because Dawn also, she has very much connections with elementals, maybe more so than you do. So, so she's going to, be able to add that little sprinkle of magic. I mean, I think you're very good with the technical side of things, as far as just, okay, we put this together, and then she's going to add her little fairy magic to it. And you know what I'm saying? So, so so she could, sprinkle the fairy dust, and it's going to be like, boom, okay, now we have a product that we can work with, So I see you and Dawn. Now, interestingly enough, you and Dawn have a soul contract with one another, even though you may not realize it. You guys are what good friends, or known each other for quite a while. So, and you actually knew each other back in Lyra, because I think Dawn also had Lyran. As a farmer, you were always needing help, and Dawn, I think, initially started off as elemental, and you were one of the farmers that she was helping, with the plants. Okay, so you get little visitations from her, and you sit and talk, and because she was a sentient being and was able to communicate, she would give you advice on how to make your plants better. And so you two have a long-standing friendship that started from the beginning of time. It's very beautiful.
She did feel very familiar to me for some reason when I first started talking to her.
Oh, wow. So do you guys, how did you meet? Did you just meet online, or?
Just on Facebook.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, she seems very familiar to me too. I was never Lyran. I was Arcturian, but I did visit Lyra, so I may have even met you two. I don't know, but
possibility.
Yeah. So I don't know, but a lot of Lyran souls, I think, are attracted to me to have readings because I know the history so well, and they're trying to recapture who they are. So. So I do see you and Dawn maybe collaborating once again with the working with the plants. Okay, so
awesome.
and I think you two will have a lot of fun with it. I mean, it's very creative. I mean, it's very scientific, but yet it's also very creative. And so I see you even expanding your garden. To the point where you're going to be growing more different varieties of flowers, to help create these tinctures. Okay. And you're going to start off real small. I mean, it's just going to be like, you'll maybe be able to maybe develop a few bottles, just for your own patients. I don't see you really expanding this into a big business until much later on, but I see you mainly developing this for your patients at first, and and I think because you're kind of a cautious person, you are a Capricorn, so, you're a cautious person, so you want to test it out on your patients to see if, okay, does this really work? Do I need to tweak it here and there? That sort of thing. So we haven't even gotten to your Earth history yet, and so I'm going to kind of move, kind of fast forward a little bit.
That's okay.
Yeah. So you came here to Earth because through the Andromeda Council, you got exposed to the Galactic Federation, and the Galactic Federation they were all talking about, and you became a member of the Galactic Federation because pretty much anybody that was part of the councils were automatically a member of the Federation. Because we're all working for the higher good. So, so you heard about this project in this little place called, this star called Sol, which is our sun, and there was a little planet there that needs some help. And as an Andromedan, and because you developed so quickly spiritually, you never really got the opportunity to truly be of service to others. Okay, a lot of the work you were doing was really high level, and so you felt it would be an interesting interesting project to get involved with, and it would help elevate your spiritual development even further. Because what a better way to do that than help a group of beings that are kind of related to us that need some help. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so you decided to volunteer for the Earth project. You found out that some of your, core soul family members also volunteered, and so you all made a pact with one another that you would be connected, if maybe not physically, at least, be able to communicate with one another, to be of support to one another. Okay, so that includes quite a bit of your Andromedan family and even your original Lyran family. Okay, so so and Dawn is part of that group, and probably some other folks that you know that are you feel like spiritually close to. Interestingly enough, there does seem to be a lot of Andromedan starseeds in the UK. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when I associate Andromeda, I associate them mostly with the Asian groups. Yeah, because Andromeda did have some colonies, very few colonies, and they were predominantly in the Pacific area, and they were trying to develop, I think, a human race that looked more similar to each other than, say, the Europeans or the Africans. So they developed, I think, a lot of the genetics from the Asian races actually came from Andromeda. So, but I'm finding a lot of my UK folks also have connections to Andromeda. So it makes me wonder if Andromeda also had a colony in the UK. And I'm thinking they probably did. So, because there's but this is how I think things work with our souls. And this would probably, I think, be of interest to you. How things work with our souls is, in order for our starseed soul to be able to incarnate into a human body, there has to be a certain level of extraterrestrial genetics that's in that human body, okay? And pretty much all humans have varying levels of genetics from different star groups, okay? But some, some may be more Sirian, some more Andromedan, or whatever. But Andromedan genetics on Earth is actually not very common, except maybe in Asia, okay? So you specifically chose your family in this lifetime to incarnate into because they had enough levels of Andromedan genetics for you to incarnate into, okay? And maybe some Lyran as well, okay? So now Lyran genetics is very predominant throughout Earth because they were the original humans, So you find, and Syrian especially, you see a lot of Syrian genetics on Earth. And Syrians were also descendants of Lyran refugees. Okay, so pretty much almost most of the groups have their origins in Lyra. Okay, so in that sense, I think as humans, we're all really related to each other. I mean, maybe, so. The only ones that maybe didn't, there was a few exceptions. Arcturus, I think, is one exception. Our genetics are very different. So we have a hard time really integrating ourselves into human bodies. But Andromedans also have a hard time because they became so developed spiritually that a lot of them evolved out of physicality. So they had to when they have to incarnate back into physicality, it's very difficult for them. So, quite a few of my Andromedan starseeds have some health issues because of that, because they just, can't integrate well into their human bodies.
Yeah.
But then there's others of them that are very healthy. So it's hard to say, but I get the sense that you're one of the healthier ones. But it's because of your Lyran, it's very strong Lyran genetics. Okay.
Okay.
It helps anchor you into your human form. If you have any questions about anything specific, feel free to ask, because this is your reading, and I want to make sure.
Okay.
But I do see, as far as the healing, you learned all that on Andromeda. It was. I don't see any Syrian incarnations for you. A lot of healers have connections to Sirius. I don't see that with you. I see, Lyra, Andromeda. That's it with you. I don't see where you have incarnated into different other star systems. Okay. But that's actually a really good thing, because you were able to integrate into those very high dimensional Andromedan energies very easily, and it was it was very, very easy for you. Now, getting to Earth, so you decided to, we're going to kind of go back to our story. I sometimes go off on tangents, so I apologize. Yeah. Getting back to your story, you did decide to incarnate on Earth. Now, because of your unique genetics, you didn't have a lot of incarnations on Earth, but you were almost like you incarnated into almost every continent on Earth. You had lives in Asia, you had lives in Europe, you had lives as maybe Pacific Islander. I mean, you had but it was very very quirky choices. I don't know. You had very quirky choices with your lives, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
I think what I'm seeing is you started off in Lemuria, okay, which is interesting because most people from the UK usually start off in Atlantis, and I'm seeing you actually had an incarnation on the other side of the world. That was your very first exposure to Earth. And I think you were attracted more to Lemuria because of its simplicity and its high spirituality. That was more appealing to you, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Do you know much about Lemuria? Or have you read stories about it? Or
just very small snippets, basically.
Right, okay. You have a very Lemurian aspect to your energy, okay? Lemuria, Atlantis was the original human civilization that was in the Atlantic side of the world. I'm seeing you were more in Lemuria. Lemuria was like its counterpart. So Atlantis was more Father God energy. They were highly technologically advanced to the point where it ended up destroying themselves because they became very corrupt. Lemuria always remained very pure. There was a simplicity and pureness about the Lemurian culture. They were more focused on spirituality, and I think that was a lot more appealing to you as a soul than Atlantis. Okay. And I'm seeing you did very simple things in Lemuria. You were a healer, you were a fisherman, you did whatever needed to be done in the villages. Very simple. They were like Polynesian, and you looked Polynesian in that lifetime. You had, Polynesian appearance. Yeah. So you had. You did whatever needed to be done, but it was always like the Lemurians are always really focused on these what they call the dream walks, or they would get into these dream states where they would just reach to higher levels of consciousness. Okay, and that was their main focus. It was always to reach the depths of spiritual awakening and spiritual path. So, so in this lifetime, you were, it was your very first Earth lifetime, and as a Earth human, and you were just, I think, getting used to being in a lower density physical form. So I think that's why you chose to do very simple things. You would go out and fish with the guys and get some fish, or go maybe collect some coconuts, or I don't know. I mean, very very simple, very simple. But it was beautiful. It was Lemuria was like. Now the remnants, Lemuria did get attacked by Atlantis, and they got destroyed. Okay, it's kind of like the whole Earth drama. It's like everything that happened in Lyra always seems to repeat itself throughout history. Okay, you always get these groups that don't like each other, and then boom, somebody attacks somebody else, and then people end up getting killed, or they end up having to escape somewhere else. But with you, I'm seeing that, yeah, you probably actually feel, I don't know if you like, I think you like warm weather better than cold weather.
Oh, I do, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's because of your Lemurian beginnings. Okay, so you would be somebody that would go to Hawaii, and you would be like, oh my God, I've come home. So you would feel.
That's my absolute favourite place.
Is it? Have you been to Hawaii?
Yeah. So on my list to go to.
Oh, okay. So you haven't been there yet?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. I spent 4 years living I'm a Lemurian. I started off as a Lemurian soul myself, and this was long before I was awakened. I was actually in the military. I was stationed there for 4 years, and I was like, oh my God. I was like so surprised at how beautiful it was, and I was just like crying because the energies there was so high vibrational that I felt like I was at my absolute physical and emotional best when I was in Hawaii, because it's one of the highest vibrational places on Earth.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so you're gonna love it. As you being a Lemurian soul, you're gonna love it when you're there. You're gonna be like, oh my God, I gotta live here, So, and you're gonna love the flowers there. You're gonna love the flowers. Oh my gosh, yes.
I need to go.
You do need to go, and I think it'll be very healing for you to go to Hawaii, because what I'm seeing with your soul is you harbor, I think, a little bit of sadness because of the loss of Lemuria. And so, and Hawaii is actually one of the remnants of the old Lemurian continent. So when you go there, it will just be very healing. You'll be able to forgive and move on, and it's gonna be such a great trip for you. I highly recommend you go if you can. Yeah. And I do recommend, not just visiting Oahu, but also Maui and Kauai and the Big Island. Visit as many islands as you can while you're there, because each island has something beautiful to offer. My personal favorite is Maui. I just love Maui. It's like paradise on earth. It really is.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you're definitely somebody that loves warm weather better than cold weather. So you probably sometimes struggle in the UK when it gets, ugly and cold, and yeah, it's just like,
oh yeah,
yeah, it's just like, ooh, this is yucky. Yeah. So that was your first lifetime. I'm seeing incarnations. I think after that you had another incarnation in the Pacific Islands. Not Hawaii, but maybe Fiji, or maybe Easter Island. I don't know. It was somewhere in that same area. And then from there you had a couple of Asian lives. One in China, and then one in. I would maybe Thailand. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Do you feel connection to Thailand at all, or?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. No, maybe it wasn't there.
Japan, I do.
Okay, maybe it was Japan. Okay, that would make more sense. Yeah, China and Japan both have high levels of Andromedan genetics, so that would make sense. And then from there, you kind of worked your way west into I'm seeing an incarnation in India, which is interesting. Yep. And then another incarnation. You didn't have much to do with the Middle East. I don't see anything there for you. The genetics there wasn't compatible with your genetics, so I don't see the Middle East at all. I don't see Egypt, which is interesting. Yeah, you weren't compatible with those cultures. You're very compatible with India and with Tibet. Okay, so I do see a Tibetan life. Yeah. And then from there, you started having incarnations in Europe. Like I said, you had very few, maybe 10 or 15 at the most on Earth. I mean, it's not a lot. And you kind of picked and chose certain areas you wanted to be in and certain experiences you wanted to have. Mostly very simple lives. I don't see that you didn't have the need to have grandiose positions, which is unlike some other starseeds that feel like they have to be in positions of leadership. I think you just wanted to experience humanity at its simplest level. That's just how you are.
Yeah, that sounds exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, you were just somebody that you didn't need the big titles. You didn't need to be, being in power wasn't an interest of yours. You wanted to have a life where you could really pursue spirituality. And so that's been an ongoing theme throughout, all of your Earth incarnations. You were like a what they call it in India, the people that kind of travel around, spiritual gurus, or I don't know what they call those guys, but they were the
yogi
the yogis. Yeah, but you were like one of those guys. You were just like traveling around, meditating, and probably practicing, pure forms of yoga, not the bastardized versions we have today, but. But you were all about higher level spirituality. And now in your European lives, this was, you were getting into the times of, the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s. So there, your roles got a little more sophisticated. I do see a life where you were some sort of a doctor. Okay. And this was probably in Western Europe, they're saying. I'm not seeing a country. They're saying
possibly Germany.
Maybe Germany. Yeah, maybe Germany. Yeah, it was in Northern Europe for sure. And I do see. Do you have memories of a life in Germany? I'm just curious.
No, it's just that I was told a long, long time back that I used to have a German guy doctor. That's the only connection I'm kind of.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, because I do see you were a doctor, and you were a small village doctor. I mean, you weren't somebody that was teaching at the universities or anything like that. You were just somebody that was healing people in a certain village, and you would travel to different villages because. And I'm seeing this was mostly in southern Germany. Maybe not. No, yeah, maybe so. I keep seeing Black Forest area. So
that's Germany, yeah.
Yeah, Germany, yeah. So yeah, Black Forest. Yeah. So so that's where you lived, was actually in the Black Forest. So you must have lived maybe close to the Austrian border or the I don't know. Yeah, it was interesting. And like I said, it was, you were a doctor, so you were educated. I mean, you used, I think, a lot of plant tinctures. So I think some of these, the work you're going to do today with the plant and the flower essences are going to come from that knowledge you picked up in that German life. So,
cool.
Yeah. And I think the German doctor guide that you have was a mentor and teacher of yours, okay? Because you did go to university. You had to learn And back then, the methods of healing, although primitive, were more holistic. And so they had a more holistic aspect than all the pharmaceuticals, they use in medicine today. So now I'm seeing you are very gifted as a doctor because you are an Andromedan soul and you had a very scientific mind. So people would seek you out all the time, for help, especially poor people. You had very much compassion for poor people that couldn't afford good medical care. So a lot of times you would accept, gifts of, whatever it is that they had to give you, and a lot of times it wasn't money, so you weren't a wealthy doctor, but I think you did okay for yourself. I do see you had a nice home, and you had a study where you would oftentimes write out your formulas for different tinctures, and I'm seeing a candle, and I'm actually seeing it's interesting, I'm seeing a little statue of Saint Raphael or Archangel Raphael that you have very much a connection with Archangel Raphael. So
okay. Cool.
Yeah, so you were Catholic during that time, and this was around the time I think Germany was starting to break away from the Catholic Church. I think you were still Catholic, so you had a belief in the saints, and you felt like they helped guided you, especially with your healing practice, and you sometimes would pray to Mother Mary, because you felt like, she was one of your guides, and she is. So,
and Ascended Masters as well.
Yeah, so Ascended Masters, yep. Another Ascended Master you're interestingly very connected with is Kuan Yin. Okay, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have a deep connection, and that came actually from your Japanese and Chinese lives. Okay, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's who you used to pray to in those lives. And then I think in your Chinese life, I think you did some sort of healing as well. You were like a shaman, or and again, it was very simple. You weren't like assigned to a royal court. I mean, you were out in the villages, just helping to heal people. You have this very beautiful simplicity about your soul. You're very and I think that's because coming from Andromeda, you wanted to truly be of service to others. You did not want the trappings of fame or fortune, or, you don't want to be distracted by that. So you always kept your path very, very pure, and you always wanted to do the right thing. I don't see any lives where you were a murderer, or anything like that. I mean, you were always living very simple lives, but, always in service, mostly in service to others, or, pursuing some sort of high-level spiritual path. Now, in Tibet, you were a Buddhist monk, and I think you were also a Buddhist monk in Japan. Okay, so.
That's very interesting.
Okay, yeah, you were.
Because, we did trance one time, and I was taken to a forest, and my teacher said to me, standing next to me was a Buddhist monk in all orange, and I was standing outside the temple. It was so that makes very big sense.
Yes, yeah, I do, and I'm seeing that vision as well, where you were wearing orange robes and you were in a temple. I see you attended the gardens a lot in that life too. That was one of the many things you did, but you love the Japanese gardens. You have Japan might be another place you might want to visit.
I would like to go. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think you'll find that very restorative, and it'll probably help awaken some latent soul memories for you. So you had you had some interesting Earth lives. Like I said, very simple but meaningful, and I don't see great trauma in any of your lives. I think you've always kind of stayed out of the limelight. And I think you did that purposefully in order to avoid a whole lot of trauma Lyra was your biggest trauma. Okay, so yeah, and that was enough trauma for multiple lifetimes. Okay, so
Sure,
yeah, that was I think the biggest experience you had. So moving into this timeline that we're in right now, you are, of course, a first wave starseed like myself. Dolores Cannon, who did a lot of hypnotherapy work in the 70s and 80s, you probably know who she is. Yeah, she discovered there was quite a few of us that were coming here to Earth around right after World War II that were coming from different star systems. Okay, so so she kind of broke it into three waves. Everybody that was born around 1946, 1947 on through the 60s are what she called the first wavers. So we're like the beings or the people that were coming in here just to bust down the old systems, okay, or at least expose it. So we're just opening the door and shining the light on all the antiquated systems that needed to be changed. So our role's a little different than the starseeds that are coming in after us, and I think Dawn was born in the 70s, so she might be a second waver. But yeah, you and I are very similar in that we're here just to start the process of change. Okay, now because we're first wave starseeds, we're also not going to be staying here on Earth. Okay, after this lifetime. Okay, there might most of us have paid our dues here. The reason why we came in first was because we were the more experienced souls. We were the ones that had more incarnations on Earth and, have done this kind of work also in other star systems. So, we came in knowing what we were doing. So, we've paid our dues. Most of us, some of us may choose to stay on in fifth dimensional Earth. I don't see you doing that. I think you're homesick. I think you want to go home to Andromeda. Okay, so
I'm very homesick.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, you're ready to go home. I'm definitely ready to go home. I'm just like, okay, let me get, okay, I know I'm here for a mission. I'm doing my thing, but after I'm done, I'm not coming back. So you are much the same as me. You're gonna return to your home in Andromeda, and maybe what I'm seeing as far as your future probabilities is that you're likely going to be assuming your old role in the Andromedan Council. Okay. Yeah. And I think you may move on to bigger level projects. Okay. There is a big project that is going to be coming up, and I saw this in the records, where Lyra and Vega are going to be rebuilt back to its original glory. Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
So you might volunteer to assist with that project. I see that as one of the possibilities that's opening up for you. Now, you are a free will being, so you may choose not to do that. But I think because that was your original home, you might be interested in that project. So
sure.
So it's going to be a big one. Okay, so Earth was a big one. This is going to be another big one. So you might be done with projects for a while. You might want to just stay in Andromeda. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, you might just say, okay, I'll let the younger group go there, but I'm not going to do that. But it's up to you. And that's not any decision you need to make now. But so I see. I see a continuation, mostly of lives in Andromeda. Actually, I don't really. If you do participate in the Lyran project, you will be going on expeditions there, but I don't see you incarnating there. Okay, so I think you feel most at home now in Andromeda. It's your it's your, it's home for you now.
Yeah, sure.
But there are, some Lyran souls that have, I think, more of a desire to return to Lyra. So, and you may do that maybe in a, far off future. I don't know. I actually see you staying in Andromeda. I think, there's enough variety and things going on there that will interest you to where, you're not going to feel a need to go to any other star system.
Sure. Yeah.
And what I see too is you're kind of moving towards, and this is like far off future stuff. So, we talk about some of these things sometimes, in readings, because it gives us, I think, the possibility of what we are evolving to become. And
sure.
I see you evolving into one of these really high-level Andromedan beings with the wings. Okay, so yeah, and I talk about that in, I think, one of my radio shows. I don't know if you're familiar with my radio show, but I talked about these angelic Andromedans, and in one of my podcasts, I might send you the link to that. But
yes, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah. They evolve so much that they no longer they live in light bodies. They don't have physical form anymore. So I see that's what eventually you're going to be evolving to. This is going to be after probably multiple lifetimes. You're not going to get there overnight, but
no.
But it's a good thing to look forward to. You talked about guides. Maybe we should check into that.
Yeah. Because I'm aware of, I have a few guides around me.
Mm-hmm. Do you know who they are already, or?
No, I'm aware of the Chinese guide.
Yeah, well, that's because you had a Chinese life, so that doesn't surprise me.
Exactly.
Yeah. I see a wizened, old-looking guy that, interestingly, he was another teacher of yours, and he's also an Andromeda. He's actually originally was Andromedan as well, so he's actually part of your greater Andromedan family. But he incarnated in China too at the same time you did, and you two connected right away because there was that inherent, soul bond between you because you came from the same, star system. And
sure.
He was the one that taught you in that lifetime anyway, all of the, the healing, the Chinese, working with qi and working with, all the, Chinese style teaching or medicine. He taught you Chinese medicine. Okay, so
cool.
So he was actually a great healer, and I'm seeing also the German doctor. It seemed like a lot of your guides are healer types. They're
sure.
Yeah, so it seems like that's your role here on Earth, is to be a healer. So in this lifetime,
Yeah. Is there an Egyptian guide around me?
Yes. Yes, I do see one. The one that came up immediately for me was Thoth. Okay, that's the bird-headed one. And Thoth too was kind of a healer, or he was actually kind of an intellectual. He was mostly in communication, but he had great knowledge. So I do see that kind of, and you do have, I guess, I don't see much in the way of Lyran guides for you. I see mostly Andromedan with you, okay? And along with the Ascended Masters and Angelics. I think the only angelic you're really connected with is Raphael. Mostly with Ascended Masters. Mother Mary. There's Mother Mary and Kuan Yin, I think, are the main ones for you. So yes, you have a very, very nice group of guides, very high level guides. So you have a mix of, some Earth guides and some off-world guides. So So I think, I think the German guy is going to help you with some of the tinctures, and your Chinese guy is going to help you with more of your energy healing. So,
yeah, cool.
Yeah. So you have a lot to look forward to in the next, you have a lot of work ahead of you, but you have a lot to look forward to as well.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I'm very happy with that. That's cool.
Yeah. So we are at the end of our time, unfortunately. I'm going to do a closing prayer, and then I'm going to disconnect our energies. So no last questions from you, correct? So everything's good? Okay. All right. I would like to thank the Masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the Lords of the Akashic Records for their point of view. And I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. Your energy goes with you. My energy stays with me.